We've also tried to get Elliot and Chris to come up the front as well for questions and answers. Just grab a couple of chairs here. Do you mind if I ask you when you're responding to a question to stand up so you can always say that it's more effectively? So are there any questions to ask? Yes, Paul?
So, James, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, so I'm Paul Rayner from TAP Networks, the electricity distribution and transmission company.
Yes.
From a network provider's perspective, I presume you've got to fit out the depots with the charging infrastructure. So the question is, as you start to actually incorporate these in the fleets, what would be the power requirement for the depots? And when do they charge? Are you sort of doing them constantly through the day, or is it like run them all day and then recharge at night?
Yeah, sure. So the answer is it does depend. We would have a look at it. We would potentially need some strategic charging if we're going down a fast charge route, where you have a lithium titanate chemistry that has sort of probably a little bit less range than maybe a Tesla type chemistry, but you might need on-network charging, so strategic charging points where you have maybe driver layover areas that the buses can charge, so there'll be on-network charging, and then of course there'll be night charging as well. You can, we talk to people like you, and it depends on how much you're going to charge us for a connection to the network, but, and we weigh that up against battery. So what we might do is have battery banks in the depot, so like a shipping container full of Toshiba batteries that trickle charges from a network, so we could have a smaller, like a 70 amp connection or something like that, and they trickle charges all day, and then when the bus comes in, bang, it can get charged within 15 minutes and can be operational again. Or we can ask you to provide a 1,000 amp connection, several of those, so we can just go in and suck that power off the network. So those are the types of variables that we'll look at and weigh up as to what we...
So it sounds like it's very much a custom designed, bespoke solution.
Yeah, because we know obviously that you being the network provider may already have the power management systems in that area to be able to handle what we require, or not. And if you don't, we might go for the bank of batteries option, or something like that. So those are the types of things. Okay.
Back there.
A few years ago, I saw in the paper that I think it was Taiwan were charging their buses on a capacitor on the bus, and they charge at every bus stop as they go along, and the capacitors weigh nothing, and very little, and they just charge at each stop. So I'm surprised that things haven't kept going. I don't know if that system works or not in a long-term basis, but
I think it does. There's different applications to suit different requirements, I think, in a mass transit network. That was the Noosa Council had e-bus trials that they tendered for, and we tendered for the second part of that. We weren't successful, but the company that was successful and that didn't end up, they cancelled the project. The company was successful it was a Hino product, and it was a supercapacitor bus. The problem we saw, we actually operate the network for Sunshine Coast as an operator, and they gave us that, even though we weren't successful in the manufacturing space, we were still operating the network, and they gave us that solution to have a look at. The problem we saw with that one, it was in a normal bus network. That asset was offline 30% of its time on the network charging. So it had a very short range and would have to charge at each particular bus stop, for instance. So I think in some respects it can work. It's just got to be the technology that fits the service requirement of the solution. That's our sort of take on the particular different technologies. I was in Barcelona, I was also in Seville recently, and they do have a tram in Seville that does, I'm not sure if it's a super capacitor or not, but it has it doesn't have any wires, so it comes into the start station and gets charged, and it might be a super capacitor, I'm not sure, but I think for those bespoke types of networks, it could work.
Or they can see
Sorry.
It's in the front here.
For Chris.
For Chris.
Your little moped Australia Post bikes, what are the wattage of the motors?
The motor is 3.7 kilowatts.
So it's 3.5.
3,700 watt motor.
What were the legislative hurdles to jump through to get them accepted in Australia, and are they any more difficult than getting them accepted in Europe?
It had to go through the Australian design rule process, so like for any other motor vehicle. So any car on the road that's been imported, or actually any car that's sold, or motorbike, whatever, has to go through basic ADR. In and of itself, that's no more difficult than doing the same thing overseas. The issue we have is more that we already did it overseas, and we have to do it again here. So they don't accept the overseas, so they only accept like system. So like a given rule will say meet this rule or meet this equivalent UNECE rule. But not all of them have a UNECE equivalent. And on the European whole vehicle type approval, it's meet all of these UNECE requirements or the European rule. So like in New Zealand, if I wanted to bring it in new, all I have to do is show up with my whole vehicle approval from European thing and then get an inspection. But I don't need to go through a registration or an ADR regulatory process here. So for us, I guess the challenge is that it just doubles everything up. So it took us 6 or 8 months and like a vehicle and 15 grand in direct costs. Just to file paperwork for things we'd already done.
So your fun vehicles, there's not much chance of getting them.
Not without legislative change. So if there were a legislative change to accept, for example, first or a quadricycle, like so. Yeah, anything that unfortunately, a motorbike is in Australia, New Zealand law is a 2 or 3 wheel vehicle. If you had a 4-wheeled motorbike, then you might be able to weasel your way around it.
Maybe go Citroen, just lift one wheel.
Yeah, I think I'll ask a quick question over here, but isn't the end of Australian motor manufacturing going to largely change the rules, and we're going to accept more European?
I would expect no.
I think it will happen.
I mean, in the longer term, probably, yeah, but it's not in the, at least, I mean, our understanding is it's not in the legislative agenda at the moment to make those changes.
Makes sense.
And in the middle there?
Question for Elliot, I'd say. I live in Tasmania, but I've ridden bicycles and taken mass transit in many countries around the world. And I'm interested in the marriage of the two, and if that's a possible solution. Like, can you take the train to somewhere with your bicycle, then take your e-bike off the train and do it to there and do that kind of thing? I've attempted it. Some places it's easier than other places to do that. Sort of thing.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. I think for Australia it's particularly important because so much of our rail network in particular doesn't cover the suburbs that are being built after the Second World War. So we've built residential areas and also some commercial complexes that are well outside the walking catchment of the public transport service. And so being able to link the two with cycling is really important because a bike can travel 3 to 4 times as fast as someone can walk, and that increases the catchment area of a public transport station by a factor of 15. So you massively increase the catchment area of the public transport network.
Which is why I try and use that system, but sometimes...
That's right. So in Australia, I mean, there are some small instances in which they have looked at it, but by and large, the people that plan the bicycle network have done so without any coordination at all with the public transport network. And the transport network is also, planners are also guilty of the same thing. So the implications of that is that what bicycle infrastructure does exist in Australia very often ignores public transport stations, so access to public transport with quality bicycle links essentially doesn't exist, and if it does, it's by chance for the most part in Australia. That's starting to change a little bit, but we've got a long way to go. Also, bicycle parking at train stations is often either non-existent or in places that people don't feel comfortable parking their bike and leaving it there for perhaps 8 or 9 hours a day. That's getting better again, but it's still got a long way to go. And then onboard carrying of bicycles on public transport vehicles is particularly important for people that want to not just get from their home to the train station, but are also looking to make an onboard journey once they disembark from a train or bus service to their final destination. So what they've done in places like Portland, Oregon, is made their light rail system able to carry 4 bikes. So the bike hangs off a hook, and you can use that space for something else if someone isn't using a bike there. So a seat flips down, so you're not losing capacity. We've also seen, and I know that Canberra is probably ahead of the game on this, and that's being able to carry bikes on the front of buses. You can carry 2 bikes on the front of almost every bus in Canberra, and that's something that is used by some people, but perhaps more importantly, it offers a safety net for novice cyclists that perhaps don't feel comfortable riding at night, or if they get a mechanical failure. The idea of knowing you can put the bike on the bus if you need to is a safety net for them that's important. So there's plenty more we can do in that space. Now, just in terms of the future and where it's headed, the Netherlands is the best place to look at, and there some 70%, in some stations, 70% of train trips start with a bicycle journey. So that shows you just what can be achieved.
So it's not impossible, it's not a silly idea. It just
well, the quality of service now, the level of service now for people wanting to do that in Australia is as low as it will ever be. It's only going to get better from here.
Just to add to that answer, there was a trial of the bike on front of buses in Hobart, just on a couple of routes, and again they were able to put the 2 bikes on the front of the bus. And from what I understand, that 2 of the problems that arose from that, one was that it was quite fiddly to get the bike on, the driver had to get out and so on. Not a major problem, but more so from the passenger's perspective, they were never sure if they were going to be able to get their bike on the bus because there were only 2 spots. And so it was, you know, first in best dressed, and you could end up not being able to get your bike on the bus.
Yeah, well, given the current levels of usage of that system in Australia, you'd be very, very unlucky if you turned up and there were 2 bikes on the bus already. I know that some of the lessons that they've learned from other cities that haven't done it so well is you need to put them on all buses. In Brisbane, about 10 or 15 years ago, they tried to only put it on some buses and not all of them, so there was no certainty to the user. And also just putting a really high quality 30-second video on the transit company's website of how to do it. That's all you need for people to be able to do it, and once you know how to do it, it only takes 12 or 13 seconds.
Yep. Dr. Jones?
I've had the pleasure of living in Vancouver for a couple of years over the course of a decade, and yeah, every single bus has one of those double bike things on the front. Everybody's used to it. They're just it's not like the person behind the bus gets upset that the bus is taking 30 seconds longer to load, because every bus has got it. But that said, they've got rapid buses, regular buses. If you miss that bus because it's got 2 bikes on it, there'll be another one in 3 minutes time. And I don't think Australia's quite got the density to make that work yet.
Yeah, I'm just going to, Elliot, based on your chart there, the ABC of how, I guess, cities build themselves, you were suggesting that most cities come to the last point where they look for alternates. How would you rate the cities in Australia? We're just sort of walking around the Australian major cities. Where are they at the moment?
Well, look, at the moment, I think they're in the build their way out of congestion model for the most part. When you look at budgetary spending from transport departments and you look at the column that would be classified as building additional road capacity or duplications of roads, that column funds the other budget columns there for other transport initiatives. So I think there's still stuff there. We seem to be bouncing around. When I look at other transport systems in other countries, they have a planning-led and technical-led approach to transport planning, whereas in Australia, what I've seen over the last 12 years or so, it's very much politically led. So if the politicians feel they can get more votes by announcing the duplication of a freeway, there'll be very little to stop them from doing that, even if their transport advisors showed them slides similar to the slides that I've shown you this morning that shows that you just can't move that many people. That doesn't really matter. So I think we're still bouncing around in this make-believe world that you can somehow build your way out of congestion. But as a lot of transport planners have said for a number of decades now, it's a little bit like trying to solve an obesity crisis by putting more holes in the belt. It's remarkable how long it's been going on. So I think we're still unfortunately still going to build our way out.
If it's the technology like the mobile phone, but I don't care how I get from here to such and such. I've got to go from here to here, and the phone tells me, gives me the options. CAD, train, something, or use this, or and it gives me the options, the price, the reliability, and everything on the phone. I just go click, tip, tap, and next thing, someone turns up at my door, picks me up, takes me to the train station, I've got an e-bike at the other end sitting at the station.
Yeah, that's
like that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peter, because that is definitely where the world is headed. And in the US, we're now starting to see an explosion of tech companies that are linked to large automobile manufacturers. So one I'm thinking of is what used to be called Ride Scout, has been bought by Daimler Chrysler, and basically what they're offering is exactly what you've suggested. So you open up the app in a city that they've got a relationship with, so let's say Washington DC. You tap in where you want to go, and it will bring up 8 or 9 different options. So how long it takes to walk, traditional taxi, Uber, Lyft, traditional car share, one-way car share, which is where you only pay for the time that you're in the car, and you can drop it off at your destination and leave it there for somebody else to use, which makes it much cheaper rather than having to hire the car for the whole period of getting to your destination, having that meeting, and then driving you back to where you originally picked it up. Public transport and private cars. So it gives you the time that it takes to get door to door from all those different modes and the cost. And for a lot of people that's really important because we have developed a transport system that's so reliant on the car that for a lot of people all they really know is the car. They don't understand the different transport options that are available to them other than the car. And so an app like that gives them all the information they need to know to make smarter transport choices to get from where they are to where they would like to go.
So is that a bit like Rome to Rio, but with the booking function in it and everything as well? And tell you the availability and book it and do everything all in one?
Yeah, that's right. So it's one app. So it's a access all modes app. So there will be a relationship between the public transport provider and Uber. So for instance, you could use an Uber to get from where you are to the nearest public transport stop, and then go public transport for the majority of the way, and then you can use another mode of transport for that last mile solution. So San Francisco is probably the most well advanced on that front, where they're working out relationships so that all the different transit companies can talk to one another and have systems in place to prepay, so it's booked on and paid for on smartphone, and then distributes the money to the different providers accordingly without the end user having to do any of that.
No, we're going a bit extra on our question time at the moment. I hope everyone's happy with that. We didn't have anyone to present for trucks, so we'll still try to go through till 10:30 with questions. And sorry, James.
No, there is a product in Australia that's similar to that exists at the moment called TripGo, and it's a bit like Uber. You open it up and say where you want to go, and it'll just feed you all the options. So how to transition from a train to a bus and all that sort of thing, and tells you how much CO2 you're emitting with each option, and direct links to Uber. Sorry.
Is it just an advice, or does it actually do the booking and everything for you?
Well, in terms of, so if you press Uber, I'm pretty sure, because they've signed a relationship together, that you'll go, if you've got an Uber app, it'll just open the Uber app.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of public transport, obviously in Southeast Queensland we have Go Card, so you would just go, okay, I need to get the 180, walk, or get a bike to the 180 or whatever it is, and then use your card and away you go.
I can see for the mass transit people, they'd know that so-and-so's booked tomorrow morning. If there's 50 people booked, they might have to book more, might be less or more, based on what they're seeing, people booking to go to places.
Yeah, we're looking at that, especially at the fringes of our networks, where we don't want to really run a 50-seater bus that's carrying fresh air. Having something a bit more on demand, where it comes into a transport node and then distributes people on a feeder
so
service.
maybe you guarantee half a dozen empty seats, and then the rest you fill up depending on the bookings and that sort of thing.
The airline model.
What's that?
The airline model. Everything's full. Paul next, and then Jeff.
Yeah, question for Chris now. With your trial at Hobart, first of all, how did the posties themselves feel when they were first given the bikes? And then when the trial ended, how did they feel about having to go back to the regular?
Right. So Hobart's an interesting one. So I can't give you the happiness story in terms of the posties. Yeah, most of the posties were kind of ambivalent. They got, so when you do a trial, you get volunteers, so they're already excited to come and do it. So you have a choice of picking who you want to use it versus that. So everyone gave it a solid go. Say that there were probably so there were 5 main posties and a couple of fill-ins. I would say probably about half and half were sort of, half of them were keen to get back on the motorbike and get back to what they were doing, and the other half were okay with the DXP and thought it would go all right. So we didn't have the kind of, not wanting to give it back experience that we've had in other places. So
Was that specific for Hobart, or?
That's a very Hobart thing. So
Right, moving on to try other
when I worked,
But what about in other
in other
areas?
locations, yeah. So when I've gone out to Perth, they haven't pulled them back out yet, but the post is like, I don't want to get back on my motorbike. I love this thing. It's great. So
Sorry to take us time to get to you, Jeff.
that's what I see all the way around. That's what I generally see around in the other spots. In Hobart, I think because of the terrain, because of where they did it, so they did it on the eastern shore delivery branch, and then they used to just ride up. For those of you who know Hobart, since we're down here, they basically could ride out from like Mornington Road and up and over like past that shopping centre where the Bunnings is on a 100k road, which they can't do now with the DXP at a top speed. So then they had to go down, like trundle down Cambridge Road, and then they felt the Cambridge Road was too busy, so they made them go onto a different road to drive on a slow one. So they had like half an hour ride out to the start of a round where it used to be like a 10-minute, pump over the hill. So, and then they say, oh, now it's like a half an hour ride back to the branch at the end. I think one other thing though, quick is that the range, and the thing that was very interesting to us was that the postie with the longest round wasn't the one who had the biggest problems running out of battery. It's very much down to how you drive. I mean, it's kind of preaching to the converted. Those of you who drive electric cars know about saving your range and that kind of thing. But the posties who were hardcore motorbike posties, we just gun it every single time, would get concerned about not having the battery last on the way back. But the one that had the longest round, no problem.
Jeff, up there?
A simple question for the bus. It's a modular power system, diesel or electric. Is it viable for a range extender hybrid in the plan, or does it just cost too much to have both things running?
No, we looked at doing a hybrid in our OEM suite. We have actually built in our body build suite of products, if you like. Tassie Link have a hybrid. I think it might be a Volvo hybrid that's a bus tech body. But in terms of an OEM product, I guess we're not the biggest OEM in the world, and we make a Euro 6 diesel now that is more fuel efficient than a hybrid. So we didn't bother going. We just went straight to electric. We go, there's no point doing this because in our networks we get a set fuel consumption and away we go. There's no point putting in a vehicle that's got a higher fuel consumption. So that's where we looked at the hybrid and said, no, it's not worth our time at this point in time.
Okay, look, we've had a really... Oh, we've got another question. We've got 5 minutes more before we have our break, so...
Just a very quick one for James. You mentioned the Adelaide is a trial still.
Yes.
Any idea when that might be taken public? Or?
No, I can't reveal anything just yet. But
will it be?
Yeah, it will. That bus will go into transport operations.
It will.
Yes. Yeah.
Just the 3?
And hopefully, there is 4. The diesel products, as far as I'm aware, are using passenger on the passenger network at the moment. It's just the electric ones are still having non-passenger trials, and we're hoping the South Australian government release their tender with next generation fuel vehicles, so there can be a larger trial of the.
Soon.
The tender will be. The tender is coming out very soon. Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll give a new person a go. Sorry.
My name's Ahmet, and I'm a little bit late to this session, so I'm with Teros, that's sponsored this.
Would you like to do your 3-minute promotion now? Tea morning tea.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, actually, I did have a question to Elliot, as someone who's got a vested interest in the future of electric bikes. Is there one thing that will help the adoption of electric bikes in Australia?
Yes, thank you very much for that question, because I had actually been meaning to mention this at the end of the presentation, but I never quite got there, and that is the need for improved bicycle infrastructure in Australian cities. That's the #1 reason people don't ride bikes in Australia, and that would be true for electric as well as for traditional pedal-powered bikes. So, and this is a big problem that, again, Australia seems to have more difficulty with than many other parts of the world, and that is making road space allocation decisions. And whilst money is part of it, perhaps a bigger part of it, but less talked about issue is that need for allocating space for different modes. And the big thing that we're seeing from cities in North America as well as some Western European cities, especially cities that haven't had a long history of cycling. So I'm thinking of cities like Paris that aren't known as cycling cities, or at least weren't 10 years ago, until they put in the Belly bike share system and put in a whole heap of improved bicycle infrastructure in the years prior to the introduction of their bike share scheme. And New York did the same thing, also not a city that was known to be a cycling city. And the big thing is bicycle infrastructure, so making better decisions about how to allocate space to provide protected bike lanes, so that's physically protected bike lanes, so it's not just paint on the road. Sometimes that will be okay, but when you've got reasonably heavy traffic or traffic travelling at 60 kilometres an hour or above, you really need physical separation. So that's vertical separation, whether it's blind boxes or traffic dividers, something that gives a cyclist and a prospective cyclist the confidence that if they are out there on the road travelling with their son or daughter to get to school, they would feel comfortable riding on the road. So that's really the big thing.
Okay, we actually did a bit of a presentation for you in your absence, so I hope you're happy with that. I'd just really like to thank our three guests for taking the time to prepare and present their presentations today. Thank you, James, for our presentation on large transport.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And medium postal delivery, small, medium and large. Thank you, guys.